Hello, everyone, and welcome to another talk with Chris and Joanna for our Patreon crowd here. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the recent distractions that have popped up. I shouldn't say recent, but more escalating distractions that have popped up in our society and what's actually causing it. So, Joanna, if you want to start off.
So, one of the things that we have talked about for years now is the fact that, those unseen, behind the scenes kind of ones trying to control everything here always go through a process of reinvention. And, it's been done for centuries. That they will try to recreate themselves and or need to recreate in order to move along within the agendas that they have set out. So, one of the agendas, again, that is actually coming forward, in all of this has to do with simplicity of, the human race is getting ready to now officially start to, let's say, meet the galactics. We have all of that going on. I know everyone out there is like, yay, it's about time. However, there are mechanisms and thought processes and agendas on how is that actually going to look like, and how will the relationships with the galactics and the different things, how will that look like, who will be the ones in representation. And many worlds in different places out there have one ruling body for an entire, let's say, world. And so one of the interesting things, again, that's going on that we've told you is in this recreation process, there's going to also be a story that unfolds in an attempt to prepare people, for, again, the visions that someone else has as far as what will that look like and what will the relationship be. And again, it seems on the surface right now, it seems, not surprising to those listening, that there seems to be some sort of hierarchical, we are the most advanced within the human race kind of mentality of interaction with, people, in a sense, a class system.
Mhm.
That's been being trying to be kind of developed and fostered.
Yeah, are humans considered to be like the rock stars of the galaxy? Yeah, because of what we're going through energetically, and also all the technically the whole grand experiment thing you hear me and Viking talk about. But no, go ahead if you're gonna.
No, I mean, we kind of are, but with on this planet and
Mhm.
trying to meld it into the getting it to a place where they want. Again, there is this hierarchy that looks like it's trying to be developed as far as those who would be considered the ones, the decision makers, things like that, and then the rest of you guys on the planet who aren't quite evolved enough. And I really do feel that this is kind of how this is trying to play out, the more evolved ones versus the lesser thans. And, it's been playing out that way for a while, but we bring that up because, again, there are certain concepts that are probably in play now that the goal would be to let there be no awareness of it, because then if there was awareness of it, then even just in your heart and soul, you could say yes or no to it. And again, your co-creative skills could potentially either advance an agenda that they have if you agree with it, or keep it from happening if the answer is no. So, although there may be this perception that, or this appearance of having a hierarchy with those that should make the decisions, it's only that way because they've kept those that they seem less desirable in the dark about who they actually are and their co-creative skills. And they still are able to manipulate people to co-create in a way that at least doesn't interfere with their plans. So that's kind of what we want to talk about. And it does have to do with everything going on right now on the earth. Specifically, I think we can use some examples related to the United States to give you something to think about as far as, where should I be placing my energies, and especially my energies where you'll have to decide, do you want something to pursue in a certain way, or do you not want to see it happen? And again, so I'm not trying to say one way or another which is the right way to go. I am just trying to say that if you aren't aware of it, then what happens is that you are not putting any energies towards something, meaning then their collective energies can push something through, and there is no mechanism to actually say no, because they've literally, the way they do these things a lot is there's a lot of distractions put out. Now, when I say the word distractions, I got to disclaimer this right now, because when I say the word distraction, I mean give you something else to focus on. Now, something else to focus on could literally be trying to put a roof over your head, or literally trying to get some sort of health care or food or whatever. And it's, if you use the word distraction and then it has to do with the basics of life, clothing, food, shelter, right? It seems very callous and very cold to use that term. So I am not saying that, distraction being used in that term to not give consideration to what's going on. What's going on is horrible. What's going on is unconscionable, that they would put people in that type of distraction, not even saying it. But I'm just using the word to say they do these things and they put these people deliberately into these different paths in order for you maybe to see not to see what's going on behind the curtain, kind of the Wizard of Oz moment. Mm-hmm. Because if you're constantly having to put forth your energies, just again, what I refer to as the lower energies, the lower chakra energies, those things that deal with just basic survival, then their, again, collective energy on a particular subject matter is able to be pushed through, because there is no dissent coming from the people that have been now, forced to look at something else. So I need to make that clear. And I think you feel the same way, because I think you use the word distraction a lot. And I think part of it, can seem a little cold and callous when people are just trying to basically survive. But that's not what we mean.
Well, also there's also a group. This was a group of people years ago that were in. This is still happening. But there's some people I encountered years ago that were in that survival mode, where it was a distraction too, where they wouldn't hear anything you had to say other than job. Where's a job? Where do I get a job? Job. It was the same as the mask, where you go mask, where people are focusing on that. It was the exact same type of program, just for a different subject. And I have run into that, where they won't hear you. They won't hear anything you have to say unless you go, well, is there a job open over here? They won't hear you. So I have run into people that are in that survival mode that are completely 110% distracted. And I have run into that. And I myself was partially in that mode years ago. So I know it's a distraction. What you mean, though, are the innocent people that are caught up in that. So that's
well, I'm meaning that you can't, if you're hungry and you're looking for food, you're going to be spending all your time doing that. If you're trying to keep a roof over your head, that's going to be your thought process. What I'm saying is that the powers that be put people into these situations in order to keep them focused on this, so they don't see what's going on. So again, when we are using the word distraction, we're talking about it in the form of a strategy that's used. It's like, I'll come over and cause chaos in your home and even have a fight and break everything you have. And now you're concerned about that, and you're worried about getting your home back together. And then on the other end, I'm draining your bank account. Okay. Do you see what I mean? It's a putting somebody intentionally in the place so they're not looking here. And it's mean and it's vile and it's vicious and it's ugly and it's uncalled for, and it should, another being should not be doing that to another being. But that is the strategy that has been imposed. It gets really down deep inside when you realize that it could be obviously people that are in governmental positions and people that you should be able to trust, that actually are participating in doing this in order to allow a different agenda to occur. Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean. And I think that's what you mean by distraction. But again, some people think the word distraction is a surfacey term, and I get it, how can you say worried about food or getting a job to put food on and to keep my roof is actually a distraction? And I'm like, no, I get it. I would be doing the same thing you're doing. That would be the priority, of course, because you got to eat, you got to keep your kids' house, you got to do whatever. But understanding the bigger picture we're trying to describe. It's another reason why when we try to talk about these issues that there isn't much when you have someone who's in a lower frequency, meaning, again, also the fear. So you talk about the disease that has been around for the past year, the vaccines or whatever. When you get people into that state of fear, especially the basics of death and dying, okay, again, it is very hard. And I always say, when you get into somewhat of a survival mode, and when I say survival mode, I do mean basic health, basic, safety, basic food, basic water, basic shelter. Those are the survival lower frequencies, okay, that people get in. When you are under that kind of stress, there is no learning going on. You become strictly in those chakras and in those energies. You become all about survival. So there isn't necessarily going to be a greater expansion until some of those issues are settled a little bit. One of the things that I think recently happened to make it even worse now for some people is simply a judge ruled, that it is unconstitutional to keep from evicting people. Now, a federal judge ruled that. So it is now going to allow for companies or whatever to now start eviction processes. So that now is going to cause even extra stress on people or people that are just barely surviving, mm-hmm. that there's nothing now even to protect them if they should get behind, because it was a setup from the beginning. Here you are dealing with people who never could get the finances to pay their back rent. And that was always a part of the deal anyway. And now it's like time has run out for them. So the world for people that are caught into that situation is going to get worse and worse and worse. Then you have the situation of, again, you have a lot of businesses have closed. Okay. You want to believe, for some interesting reason, supposedly the economy is great, but the only economy that's great are the bigger businesses that are part of the hierarchy anyway, a lot of online or whatever. So if you're online and you're doing this, or Walmart's doing better, it's not like Walmart's opening more stores in your area to provide employment. Mm-hmm. So there is a problem with employment. And so now you have people that are struggling that potentially will lose their home and not get the employment. So what I'm saying is that everything has been done from this side to put people in more pressure and more problems and more everything that's going on. It's intentional, and it is so another agenda cannot be seen. So my perspective on this is that what I feel that Chris and I should, do and make sure that we say is that we talk about the strategy and we talk about the potentials of what we feel are the agenda. Now, can we sometimes be wrong? Okay, sometimes we're wrong. with picking out exactly what the agenda is. But it's not the point. The point is for those people that are not in this bubble of just survival and can afford, give consideration to what's being said, and at least make a choice and intention of whether or not you want us to go this way or not, because that's the energy that's needed that may be able to stop some of this, and then things begin to change, which then allows those people that are actually really in a trap situation right now to be able to get stability and then to come out of it and then to see a little bit more clear. So as frustrating as it is, because I get it. I get the frustration that everyone's having. I get the frustration of the arguments. I get the frustration of, maybe being someone who can see a bigger picture, but no one's listening. Believe me, I get the frustration of that. But aiming a lot of all of your anger right now, because you don't know where to aim it, to certain groups, it's really not the group you need to be paying attention to.
Yes, this is also what's meant by distraction. I was not denigrating those looking for a job. It's usually the ones that are in survival mode to the extreme, is what I was saying before. The ones that are totally wrapped up in it and don't see any other option. I called it the trapped mentality.
And they really are. They're trapped in those lower frequencies. They're just trapped in that survival state. So it's accurate.
Yeah, and also this isn't a recent thing in the argument. We always say about the mask argument. This came up, of course. This came up on AZ Family, and yes, they are responsible, and I can name them because we're on our Patreon at the moment. They probably won't see this, but they instigate a lot of these fights between the maskers and the anti-maskers, and the vacciners and the anti-vacciners. They instigate a lot of these fights just by making a post. Well, should this be done? Of course, they're opening a debate, but the recent one they put up about the mask, and you people probably saw me post a few things on there, which I do. I'll plant seeds of information, but there are some things that make me mad. Certain people on there that make me mad, but
you're human and you vent too.
Yeah, and especially the ones that are totally asleep. That I know some of them are trolls on there that are instigating the fight. Some of them are part of the corporate arms, and some of the cabal factions and stuff that are trolls and plants in there. Those are obvious who they are, usually, at least to me. Well, what I saw on there is when they put this mask debate up on AZ Family. They put the powder keg on there. Both sides lit it because both sides basically bear hugged this barrel and exploded with it. Because what happened was you had the maskers and the vacciners started it, which they usually do. But that heavy programming, usually starts this fight. They went in and they started talking about, they need to shut this down. Oh no, you anti-vaxxers and you anti-maskers, you keep this, you're elongating this thing out. You're hurting so many people. And then that's when started the snowball downhill from the other end, which I sympathize. I told her this morning, I sympathize at this other end because they're right in this, but as vile as it got, threatening to kill the people on the other end, and that's where it went after a while. It took about a day. But it went to threatening to kill some of these people that were pushing the mask agenda and pushing the vaccine agenda. Because some of these people that were on this end, more on our end of it, were saying, we lost businesses, and we were losing money. You people keep turning people in. Your neighborhood snoops. You won't mind your own business. Leave us alone and let us do our thing, and we wouldn't be so mad at you. It started out that way. Once the other side started going, oh no, you ignorant anti-maskers, you're hurting society, you're murdering people. That's when it got to, well, why don't we just put a bullet in your head? And that's where it went.
And this is the ploy. So again, I'm using the people trying to make an agenda and then whatever. So what's always going to happen is that, I'm the man behind the curtain. You can't see me and what's really going on, but I can make you fight amongst yourselves. Because, you want to believe, because you don't even realize this is really existing, that it must be within this that the solution is there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
they want you to believe it's just strictly over here, when it is actually everybody working together to actually come up with this
yeah, and it is really a big issue that a lot of people aren't aware of. And again, so keeping people fighting over here is going to allow them to kind of push through things that they want to push through. It's the tactic that's been used forever. It's not broken, so they're still using it. It revolves around everything. It revolves around the whole racism issue, the fascist conversations. It's the same thing. It's about getting the fight to happen over here amongst the people and blaming all of the people, and then forget the agenda. Every now and then they're going to throw you a bone, and they're going to take a lower level cabal and they're going to put them through, their torturous time. Let's say,
like the Epsteins, like the governor of New York. They're throwing him under the bus currently. So,
yeah, and that happens all the time. Okay, so there will always be, again, even though he's been a part of it, is your number now up? And so the number now up thing is when somebody, you don't know their name, and I'm telling you that's a high up, decides that your chess piece needs to take a hit. And so, and then it starts tumbling, down and into it. Now, again, I'm not saying these are good people. I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I'm not saying anything like that. What I'm trying to talk about is the strategy of how it's done, because that's what's really important for people to more understand, so that they can focus when they see the signs of what is the true agenda that's not being talked about now, potentially out there. So what I want to say is there's some signs right now that are showing themselves that are part of a bigger agenda that's trying to be pushed through, that people haven't even realized it yet. And if they would have their way, they would never realize it. So that's what we really want to talk about today. I have empathy for everybody. I have empathy for those that are more susceptible to be under the thumb when they start their stuff, and they are more susceptible to really be, the victims of that. And again, people have a hard time with me saying they're the victims. They are the victims. We tried to tell people that in 1964, that was a big year for the cabal to start really turning on their ability to control the minds of people. And that's when the
Binder Network was turned on at the World's Fair in 1964. Yeah.
And so what's been happening with that, is that they've been having to up the ante more and up the ante more and up the ante more as far as their technologies and what they've been doing to keep people still more and more under control. Some people are falling by the wayside, and they're less susceptible to it. A lot of people are still susceptible to it, but I will point out at least that it is not the same technology that has to be used now to keep people like this. It's a lot more evolved, which to me is a good thing, because it actually means that humans are basically growing past it. Okay, in a sense, and it may take a long time for everyone to grow past it, but if they have to keep up in the ante, it's no different than certain painkillers. You start at a level that everyone's naive and has never had this painkiller before. It doesn't take as much, but then people need more and more and more and more to keep them at that same pain.
And that's where you get the 5G playing a role in. People were becoming more and more resistant to some of the mind control, so they had to keep up in the ante. Yeah.
Okay, but still, with them doing that, more and more people are falling aside, and they're not really susceptible. So they'll continue until they can no longer continue. One of the interesting things, because again, of people falling to the side in the United States more than any place, there is again now an effort that's slowly turned on about controlling what people see on the news, controlling it to the point so they would get people to have a certain perspective. All of that stuff has had to come into play too, because just this one little thing wasn't working as well. So you got to have that. But what we want to bring up today for your consideration, and, we would love to see more people carry out this conversation, is simply that I think it was, if I recall correctly, I believe it was George Bush Sr. who mentioned about a one world government. Now, how long ago was that?
Mhm.
That was very, very long ago, about putting together kind of this one world thing going on. And the reason that may become very important is, again, going back to reaching out and being a part of the galactics. There are organizations out there that expect for you to be able to truly be a part of it, that there is only one voice coming from a planet.
Yeah, that's how some of the Galactic Federation rules are, or at least some of their other areas. They expect there to be one ruler per planet, not necessarily a council too, but it's more mainly like a king or a queen. Now, the Cabal have fought like mad to actually become that controlling entity. The Nazis have fought like mad to become that controlling entity. But the Galactic Federation doesn't seem to understand that those same rules do not apply here, because Earth is too vastly different.
Yeah, many other places you have a planet with the same race.
With the same race, but we have so many different races.
We have so many.
It doesn't apply.
Right, and we've spoken about this plenty of times before as well, about what's out there waiting for us, and the fact that there's a excellent chance that the Galactic Federation needs to grow themselves.
Yeah, they've been around for millions of years. They still they have room for growth,
and they need to grow, and they need to grow in their perspective. But currently, this is where our understanding of that line is. And so here you have a statement that was made, I don't believe just by happenstance, I believed orchestrated, to go ahead and put in what we would refer to as the marker in time of starting that implementation process. So what does that actually look like? It's probably going to look like, again, the big plan being put together. How do you now take and create that? Well, you're going to have to now take apart and dismantle some things that currently exist. One of the things, and again, we'll just use the United States, can you really see a person like Donald Trump yielding to somebody else?
No.
It would be hard to see the president of the United States yielding to someone else, like he was now just a governor of an area versus the leader of the free world. So you're going to potentially, have to dismantle what some, if they're not willing to take let's call it subservient role, you'll have to do some dismantling or restructuring. So one of the interesting things that, has been talked about recently, especially when COVID came up, is predictions that were put out before, Sylvia Brown passed. So she has a book of prophecies. And it was an interesting thing because everyone was kind of amazed that it seems like that she had in her book this COVID issue coming up.
Mm-hmm. She mentioned it virtually directly.
Yeah. And then there's this discussion about the restructuring of the United States, doing away with the presidency, having it more like, the Roman
Greek
style, Senate ways.
Yeah.
So again, dismantling of something that would then allow for someone else to be able to be a figurehead position that they now respond to. So what we're trying to say is that you need to look closely at what's going on currently in our system, and specifically, we'll just talk about the United States, because I don't actively have a lot of knowledge if this similar type of thing is beginning to occur elsewhere in democracies where you have a presidency set up. I don't know if it is or not. But I can say in the United States, how do you dismantle a presidency? Well, you can't, you're just not arbitrarily just going to decide that our Constitution and the way that we've set something up, we just want to change it. That ain't going to work. It's not going to fly. And especially if you have to get the citizens of the country to buy into it.
Mhm.
What you're going to do is you're going to start to cause situations to question that does that position have so much power wrapped into it that it's becoming too detrimental if you get someone in there that will try to be more than their role, or they're, in some sort of danger. So you have to look at the things that are going on now. I'll give a couple of examples. If you have someone who understood years ago and said that writing all of these executive orders is not healthy for, things should go through a legislative process, and executive orders are rarely used. If you then walk into a presidency where it seems to be things are all now being done by executive order, then you're questioning, you've left out these parts. What in the world is going on? Are you trying to rule as a dictator? Are you trying to rule as this? So you have to look at this and say, okay, this is dangerous. Should we really be having this or not? And then again, is this part of a playette that's now going to play out to try and convince you that this position is dangerous and no longer now needs to be there?
Just like Sylvia Brown said years ago, that there would be past a certain time there would be no sitting president, or I believe Donald Trump was technically the last sitting president because of the whole election fiasco. I believe she was seeing that part, but also the extremes between the red and the blue, showing you the opposing opposites where everything should be more unified. Like you have a president that's loud and outspoken, that is clearing the swamp, and he's actually doing at least some of the work there. Then you have one that is more subservient and obviously has some kind of mental illness. So you have these polar opposites.
But then again, now that's coming up, some of the things within our presidency are questioning. Letter from the Democrats to the president, basically saying, should the president be the one carrying the nuclear codes? Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people are saying, looking and watching the president right now, and are concerned for his health. Is something wrong? Does he really have the vitality? So that will also lead to this concern about the position. And have we, are there certain circumstances where the position can the person in the position can be compromised one way or another, politically, ideology, this, that, and the other, whatever, that maybe that position is dangerous to have. And so this is what I'm, what I want to try to have you look at and watch, because what the connection is, that we maybe want to create a thought process going on in the regular people, because we want to get rid of the presidency, because we're moving to this world government, and no president of the United States is going to take a backside to anything. Right. And so we have to change the structure of that country in order to move forward this other agenda. And so just because a psychic saw this timeline, again, it doesn't mean it's going to go that way. Now, will it go that way if no one else notices? I'm pretty sure it will go that way. If no one else notices to put forth the energy to say, no, I want it how it is. I want it cleaned up, but I want it how it is. So I think, again, what we want to talk about is what we understand are the strategies that are used to push an agenda through. And then it's the awareness. Knowledge is the actual power. So knowledge, and you guys may think we're the biggest Looney Tunes ever for even bringing this up, but how much will it really take of you to say, if that's a possibility, I don't want the presidency to go away. I say no to that. So, it doesn't take much to say, I want the structure to stay the same, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're all for it. I don't know, individually what everybody wants. But I just point out that this is how the strategy goes. It's almost like, okay, all of this is going on right now. So whatever here should I be noticing that I'm not noticing?
Yeah, the big distraction now with Biden doing his thing, his whole fit with dementia. Let's just say, what is it being distracted again? What are you being distracted against? What is being played in the background? Look at all the distractions that are happening. The mask, no mask. We've said all these other things throughout history with anti this for that, to get people fighting. As also of January 6th, 2021, they were trying to spark a civil war by the Capitol being invaded. They were trying to spark or ignite the powder keg of war, and people did not fall for it. They chose not to go there, even though they are going there on Facebook. I don't believe it's going to accelerate beyond that. It's they elected to put that particular war on social media versus going street to street with a red or a blue hat on. This is the way it's going. You saw all these people on the news, on both sides of the news, not where the red side was showing what some of the blue side was trying to instigate, that sort of thing, where they were basically saying assault these people that wore red or supported Trump, or they tried to put Trump label on something that's more neutral, like voter fraud. So it's something that people will fight over. Well, they didn't fall for it. They didn't completely fall for it. They kind of are, but it's not to the exact extent or level that the cabal wanted. They wanted a culling, an actual true sense of the word culling. It didn't happen because people have improved that much more beyond that timeline. There were other timelines that other seers have seen, including myself, where there was massive wars going on, nuclear conflicts. The Orions wanted a nuclear conflict to happen so they could walk freely around the planet in the radioactivity. They wanted all of that to happen. Well, they aren't getting it because we jumped timelines too many times to actually have that particular fallout. Let's just say. Also with the supposed civil war, they even tried it within the video games. I'll even place a little recording I did the other day on the end of this, what my theories behind some of the disclosure on some of the Civil War stuff, which is not going to come to pass. And also, what are they distracting against? Well, there's also a lot of alien stuff going on right now. This is the conversation that's also not being had, except by very few people. They're distracting against disclosure. They're distracting against you looking up at things that are happening in the sky, listening to things that are happening beneath your feet. They don't want you to look above or below and remain present. They want you distracted by this plethora of opposites, like gun, anti-gun, smoking, anti-smoking, red, blue, red pill, blue pill. You want Creepy Joe, or do you want Trump? These are distractions that are put in your way. Also, people that are just fighting over little tiny things, or in comparison to one of the only issues that's really left is disclosure. And I've said this years ago, where the turning over of that particular set of knowledge would completely erase, but not necessarily erase, it would start to heal all the rest of these things. Even though the healing starts from within and you not falling for these distractions, that's the main thing. The disclosure of what's up there in the system and everything that's going around and out, with the UFOs and with aliens and everything, I believe that would clear up a lot of this chaos. It would cause its own form of it for a short period of time, but I believe then that would become the only issue. And that is one of the main things that is being distracted against right now. You try to say it, you get laughed at. Especially, I've tried to say it on AZ Family directly just to gauge where people were. No, everybody shut down at that point. Both red pillars and blue pillars completely shut down. And that was gauging where they were at that point.
And in a sense, they're also trying to keep what I call the duality alive.
And keep it good versus evil instead of neutrality.
Right. And so one of the things, again, in the political arena would be to have, again, the Roman Greek style Senate that keeps the polarity alive, meaning you really only have liberals and conservatives. You really, and that's kind of what's going on right now as well. for these parties to become much more extreme, that you get caught up in supporting one or the other of them, and thus other parties really don't have a great chance of being developed. Now, that is, again, a strategy being applied. Do you want that? Or do you want the ability for independence, or the ability for, other parties and different things to evolve and come up with an ideology and also be able to participate in the process? So again, there is a big issue going on that is a bigger agenda, bigger thought process, while people are being put into these horrific conditions, okay, to keep them not paying attention to this. Then the goal is that they are going to spill their story out. They're going to spill their story out on the evolution of us getting into space and what we're doing. It certainly isn't going to include the harshness that we oftentimes allude to for those people that were pulled into something to be a worker. And they're not going to discuss the harshness of that. They probably will, for those people who speak out about it, want to just claim that they're having some horrible PTSD, something horrible's happened. Feel sorry for these people.
Well, like
it's
SSP
not the truth.
light, basically. SSP
right.
Light.
It's not the truth of really what happened. These poor people are just having mental illness.
Yeah, they won't want to report on how bad it was.
They won't want to do anything like that. They're going to try to run a story in a certain way, in a certain pathway, and try to keep people busy enough over here to just being willing to not even challenge the story, to go with it. And then they're going to run a spin of an agenda that they're going to work on getting everybody's energies to buy into, related to this false story narrative as well. So that's what's going on, because that is what's happened over and over and over and over again. There's really no new tricks going on. It's really a regurgitation of how they've done it and how they've done it in the past.
This is also why you have some false insiders, I'm not going to name them on here, basically trying to vet those of us who legitly went through traumatic experiences in the secret space program, and all just to say, oh, no, you're not one of them. No, you can't be. No, that those set of events didn't happen. No. And that is also taking place with some false insiders. There's a lot of good ones, a lot of closeted ones, and there's a few out there that are extremely noticed, and they're also extremely believed. And they became the line for vetting, and they did not need to be. So,
well, it was part of the plan.
It was part of the plan.
These people would be put in positions like that. Not to say that they don't have their own legitimate experiences. We're not saying anything like that. We've told you guys many a times how complicated all of this is, and they may not even realize that they've been put into a position of being this better. And they may think they're a little bit more independent than they really are. So again, we're not calling anyone out. We're not putting out any names. We're just trying to tell you the true scenario of our understanding of the dynamics of what's going on out there. And again, discern the message, not the messenger, and understand, please, that this is complicated. I think everyone wants to make this easy, and it's not. And so it's going to be easy to fall back down into, I'm just going to blame this person over here. And if they didn't exist, the problem. No, it would still exist, because they have 50,000 people waiting in the wings to take over. You see what I mean? If one of their people is thrown under the bus and they need that person now to go under the bus, they have plenty more to, take the place, to move an agenda, whatever. It's not an only one. So you need to understand that this is long-term strategy, longer than you probably could ever really imagine. And this is what they employ. But again, we're not trying to leave anything on a negative note, because knowledge is power. What you should be doing is also spending time in our society. What do you want our society to look at? Go to the end. What do you want it to look like? How do you want the governmental structure? What do you want it looking like to actually, and how do they act? And again, the things like the term limits or whatever, those magically disappeared over the last 12 years. All of those good what was referred to before as Tea Party thoughts, all of that was they managed to push out of people's minds by other things, because some of that is really the way to not allow some of this other to occur. So can you change, potentially a government structure that works more for the people than for something else? Sure, you can, but the people have to be aware. So that's where their co-creative energies go, because right now someone else is steering the boat, because they are getting you to believe things that aren't true. And so you're giving your energies that way, or they have you so busy just trying to put a roof over your head that you don't have time to think about it. And you've kind of deferred your energies to whatever you want, whatever. And you're really giving consent to whatever they want in their agenda. It's all done by trickery. But again, knowledge is power. And so the goal is for those that hear this, and, as this information now is grounded, and more, you'll start to hear more people, here slowly starting to talk about just what we've talked about, because we're trying to push the energies of these conversations out. So you will start to hear others talk about it as well. And that's the goal. And then to give consideration, well, how do you deal with it? Again, go to the end and dream in what you want. Now, we may not all agree. Some of us may want to maintain a presidency in the current structure. Some may want the structure to change. I'm not saying it'll stay the same way. I'm just saying, put your voice in and your heart and your intent of what you see is a world that you would want to live in and how it functions for you. And then simply the greater torsion field ends up winning. And so that becomes almost like a democracy within itself of who wins this. But when you have no knowledge of it whatsoever, the ones behind the scenes controlling end up always winning. So again, I don't know what else you want to say. I think that to me was the biggest thing, that be aware when you may be caught up in you're participating in something and you're really not seeing something else that's going on. Open yourself up to constantly having the intention that you really want to understand what's going on. And again, I'll be quite honest, if I were going into a place and the people there were really scared and I needed to make a mask to not make them scared, I would wear a mask, because these are people here. I don't have any expectation at this moment that they are currently going to poof into this higher level. That is what the New Agers think, and it will not happen.
Oh yeah, that will not happen. But also, if there's like, say, a small minority that majority is pandering to with the mask, I completely disagree with that. Now, if you have, say, a doctor's office or something like that aren't being mean about it, or a dentist's office that aren't really being pushy and ready to beat you up over it, and they're being kind and nice, and they ask you, and I said this to a doctor we knew, they asked, they didn't demand, they asked.
And they did it because they had a lot of people who were older that were coming in, and they were legitimately afraid. And again, you have to think about where a person is. You're not going to magically bring them up. It's not going to magically happen. What you want to do is help them by seeing a bigger picture, so you can lend your energies to what you should be lending your energies to. And then that then trickles down and helps them. It's not their fault if they're more susceptible to some of this control. And that's where I get a little bit perturbed, because people think somehow it's their fault. It's not their fault.
On occasion, there are those that are the linchpins for things.
There may be, but it's not as in a general statement. They are actually kind of victims. I don't disagree with you with the linchpin, but I just am saying, please pull yourself out and try and see this at a higher level. I am not saying sometimes there isn't a moment where you should have a confrontation, because as he knows, I have been directly involved in conversations where I've stood my ground over appropriateness when a person is getting out of control.
When they are actually truly out of control.
When they're out of control, but legitimately, if I were around a bunch of people who are old, let's say for some reason I was taking my family member to a cardiac office for a doctor's appointment, and they wanted people to wear a mask, and you had all these people in there with cardiac problems or whatever, I guarantee you I would be considerate and wear a mask. even though it may not mean much, but it does mean much in that particular situation. Okay. There isn't much people can do right now with these corporations demanding masks being worn in their place. Again, you have to think of how did that happen? How did they get so much power? You need to look about laws and different things that were changed to
That need
actually,
to be reamended,
that maybe
yeah.
need to be relooked at. Okay. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about true consideration for people who are actively scared and, and have, and most of them, I bet you, if they're actively that scared, they're also caught up in a true struggle of survival. You don't know who's sitting beside you that's worried that they won't be able to pay the mortgage or the rent the next month, or where's the food coming from? Because maybe they're in the doctor's office, they're going to have to pay for a test, and then they have to decide what food they're going to have for the next month. Do you understand? So you got to understand that it becomes complicated, but the most scared are going to be the people that have some other form of vulnerability going on as well. And it becomes into this survival mode for whatever reason. And so it's complicated. Please understand that.
It's incredibly more complicated than people think. It's not just black, white, red, blue. Yeah.
And so have consideration, but when you really need to assert yourself, assert yourself. Okay. And
you know those situations.
And you will know they will present themselves. They will be as clear as whatever. But then also, don't forget your own personal humanity, understanding where some people are, and just do it to keep the calm. Okay. So it's complicated, and please know that. But anything else?
No, I think we're good for this discussion today. I know this is another one of those impromptu discussions, but this is what came up because of a few mishaps on AZ Family. Yes, I still blame you, AZ Family, wholeheartedly for instigating these fights, but we won't completely go there.
That's not really why this came up. We started talking about this a few
days ago.
I
know. We started talking about it a few days ago, but I have to throw AZ Family under the bus a few more times. But
he just likes to do that.
Anyway, this was a discussion with me and Joanna today as of 2/28/21. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.
All right. This is something that I would have added to the end of, or part of the Skyrim episode of the lifting. I know you heard me say all the stuff about the controlled opposition with, say, the Stormcloak faction, and also the Empire. The Stormcloak faction was the controlled side to get everybody riled up. Well, guess what's happening now? In Skyrim, it was red, blue. Who was the blue side? I know I compared Ulfric Stormcloak to QAnon because that was also getting people riled up. I know that was technically integrated into the red, but it's red, blue, red and blue pills. Red pill, right side, left pill, leftist. Blue pill, leftist, rather. So that's also what that meant. But it's just like with politics today. Exactly what's going on. The red side would have been keeping, of course, the whole Thalmor at bay, or the Aldemir Dominion at bay, with its protections protecting the Empire. But then the Aldemir Dominion makes the blue side, captures Ulfric Stormcloak and puts him back out in society, and he starts the whole revolution. He kills the king and kills King Torrig, and then starts this bloody 20-year revolution and civil war. And then you read in the game, as I've said, that he was programmed to put back out there. So, and somebody's trying to interrupt as I'm saying it, but this is how the controlled side is. The blue side trying to save your rights over that of the safety of everybody else. This is exactly what's happening now, with the blue side taking down all of Trump's policies on immigration, on protections, guns, all this other stuff. Think about it. It's the same story. It's the exact same story. In Skyrim, they were taking away the Thalmor and the Empire were taking away the religious rights of the native Nords. The Empire did it to keep everybody safe from the Thalmor, since the Thalmor technically beat them in a war and just kept them as almost like a pet in the background. And that's how the aliens are today. So this is exactly how it is. All of it collapsing because of the other faction, the blue faction. All they had to do was just not to do things, and it would have kept everything placid and normal. Just like somebody said in Skyrim, the Empire was getting real lazy. They were looking kind of the other way, and it was real placid, and then Stormcloak had to come along. But in this case, you have two kind of Stormcloaks. It was Trump and Biden going back and forth and riling everybody up, even though it's red-blue. It's very similar. It's the same story, actually. Red pill, blue pill. And compare it to that. I even wrote down, I'll have to make a meme at some point out of this, what I call the Stormcloak effect is a scene that he's in a peaceful meeting with the Empire, and they say one thing he doesn't like, and he stands up and gets all huffy and puffy and goes, we all know people that do this. You say one thing that triggers them, and they stand up and just start breathing or practically hyperventilating. That's what I call the Stormcloak effect. It's because the programming was touched or triggered or tickled, basically. And that's how that happens. And we see a lot of leftists act this way in society right now. We see that right now. And anybody with any sort of programming really does, but more so around politics. And so I called this the Stormcloak effect, based on the game. So, yeah, this is where I will end this particular recording. It is 8:29 a.m., Friday, February 12th, 2021. Thank you.